Olivia's heels clicked against the polished marble of the lobby, a rhythmic soundtrack to the end of a long day. The city outside was alive with the hum of rush-hour traffic. But inside the sleek high-rise that she called home, there was a tranquility that she craved after the chaos of the airport and the non-stop buzz of her business trip. She rode the elevator up to her apartment, her mind still occupied with the lingering details of her latest project. The numbers and strategies that had become as much a part of her as her own heartbeat. The door slid open with a soft ding, and she stepped into the dimly lit hallway. The scent of jasmine from the potted plants outside her neighbor's doors mingling with the leather of her briefcase. She fumbled for her keys, the day's exhaustion finally catching up with her, a weariness that seeped into her bones. Unlocking her apartment door, Olivia pushed it open and was met with an unexpected stillness. The living room, usually bathed in the warm glow of the lamp she left on for her return, was dark except for the flickering light of the television. That cast dancing shadows across the walls. Her first thought was that there had been a power outage, but as her eyes adjusted, the truth unfolded before her in a scene that was both striking and deeply unsettling. In the heart of her living room was her stepson, Jeremy. His tall, athletic frame positioned over the petite, curvaceous form of Chloe, his girlfriend. They were oblivious to her arrival, lost in a world of their own. Olivia's presence went unnoticed as she took in the sight of Chloe's long dark hair splayed across the cushions, her upturned face a portrait of ecstasy. Jeremy's hands, those hands that had once been small enough to fit inside his own as a child, now traced the contours of Chloe's body with an intimacy that was both beautiful and jarring to witness. Olivia's breath caught in her throat, a silent gasp that threatened to betray her presence. A myriad of emotions washed over her. Surprise, certainly, but also an unbidden attraction that ignited a warmth deep within her core. She had always appreciated Chloe's beauty, her sharp wit, and infectious laughter. But now, seeing her like this, Olivia was forced to confront the depth of her own response to the young woman's allure. The sound of her luggage hitting the floor was the only indication that she had moved. A noise that cut through the heavy silence like a knife. Jeremy's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock, while Chloe let out a startled cry, quickly pulling the throw blanket from the back of the couch to cover herself. "Olivia!" Jeremy exclaimed, scrambling to his feet, his face a mask of mortification. "We thought you were coming back tomorrow." Olivia's mouth opened and closed, words failing her as she struggled to regain her composure. Clearly, she finally managed, her voice steady despite the tumultuous emotions raging within. "I caught an earlier flight." Chloe, now sitting up with the blanket clutched to her chest, offered a sheepish smile. "We're really sorry, Olivia. We didn't mean to do this here." Olivia nodded, a small understanding gesture that belied the racing of her heart. "It's okay," she assured them, though the air between them was charged with an electricity that had nothing to do with apologies. "I'll just go to my room." Retreating to the sanctuary of her private space, Olivia closed the door behind her and leaned against it, her heart pounding in her chest. The image of Jeremy and Chloe, entwined and unguarded, was burned into her retinas, a vivid reminder of the intimacy she had witnessed and the desires it had awakened within her. She moved to her bed, sitting down on the plush comforter as she tried to make sense of her feelings. There was a part of her that felt like an interloper, an unwitting voyeur who had stumbled upon a moment that was never meant for her eyes. Yet there was another part, a deeper, more hidden aspect of herself that felt a fierce longing, a need, to experience the kind of raw passion she had glimpsed in that stolen moment as she undressed and prepared for bed. Olivia's mind was a whirl of thoughts and images. She could still see the smooth expanse of Chloe's skin, the gentle curve of her hip, the way her fingers had gripped the cushions in the throes of pleasure. It was a vision that Olivia could not easily dismiss, and as she slipped between the sheets, she found herself grappling with a truth that was as exhilarating as it was terrifying. She was attracted to Chloe, a realization that threatened to upend the careful balance of her life. The following evening, Olivia found herself amidst the bustling crowd of an art exhibit, a high-profile event that drew the city's elite and art enthusiasts alike. She had hoped that the exhibit, showcasing provocative modern pieces, would distract her from the lingering thoughts of the previous night's unsettling homecoming. Yet, as she moved from one canvas to another, her mind remained tethered to the image of Jeremy and Chloe entwined on her living room couch. The gallery was alive with the hum of conversation and the clinking of glasses, the air rich with the scent of expensive perfumes and the subtle undertones of oil and turpentine. Olivia immersed herself in the world of shapes and colors, each piece a silent testament to the breadth of human emotion. She found herself drawn to a particular work, an abstract depiction of desire that seemed to mirror the turmoil churning within her. As she studied the painting, a familiar voice cut through the noise of the crowd, sending a jolt of recognition through her. Olivia turned to find Chloe standing beside her, an apologetic smile playing on her lips. "Olivia, I didn't expect to see you here," Chloe said, her eyes reflecting the complexity of their shared secret. Olivia's pulse quickened at the sound of her name on Chloe's tongue. "Chloe," she replied, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "It's a popular exhibit. I suppose we both have an appreciation for art." They stood side by side there, bodies mere inches apart as they gazed at the painting. The tension between them was palpable, a magnetic force that neither could deny. Chloe's presence was intoxicating, her subtle perfume mingling with the warmth of her skin, creating a scent that was entirely her own. After a moment of silence, Chloe turned to Olivia with a proposition that caught her off guard. "A group of us are planning to grab a drink at a rooftop bar after this. You should join us," she offered, her gaze searching Olivia's for a sign of interest. Olivia hesitated, her loyalty to Jeremy warring with the undeniable attraction she felt towards Chloe. "I don't know," she began, her eyes betraying her inner conflict. "It's been a long day and—" "Please," Chloe interjected, her hand gently brushing against Olivia's arm in a gesture of encouragement. "It would be nice to have some company that isn't solely focused on networking and schmoozing." Olivia found herself unable to resist the genuine warmth in Chloe's voice. "All right," she agreed, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "I'd like that." The rooftop bar was a hidden gem nestled atop one of the city's towering skyscrapers, its elegantly furnished terrace offering an unparalleled view of the skyline. The city stretched out before them, a breathtaking panorama of shimmering lights and towering structures that seemed to fade into the infinite darkness of the night sky. As they settled into a secluded corner booth, the ambient noise of the city provided a backdrop to their conversation, which flowed with an ease that surprised them both. They spoke of art and literature, of dreams and aspirations, each revelation drawing them closer together, both physically and emotionally. Chloe's laughter was a melody that danced on the warm evening breeze, and Olivia found herself entranced by the way the city lights played across her features. The lines between friendship and a deeper connection began to blur, each glance, each shared smile, fueling the fire that had been ignited within Olivia. Their conversation took a turn towards the personal as the night deepened, the alcohol loosening their inhibitions and allowing them to speak freely of their fears and desires. Chloe confessed her struggles with her own artistic endeavors, insecurities laid bare in a way that touched Olivia's heart. "I envy you, Olivia," Chloe admitted, her voice tinged with a vulnerability that only added to her allure. "You've built such an impressive career and you seem so confident in who you are and what you want." Olivia reached across the table, taking Chloe's hand in her own. "We all have our battles, Chloe," she said softly. "You're an incredible person and your art is beautiful. Don't ever doubt your talent." Their eyes locked, and for a moment the world around them ceased to exist. It was as if they were the only two People in the universe bound by an understanding that transcended words. The pull between them was undeniable, a gravitational force that neither could resist nor fully comprehend. As the bar began to empty and the staff started cleaning up, Olivia realized that they had lost track of time, engrossed in their private world. She glanced at her watch, a startling reminder of reality and the implications of their deepening connection. "We should probably head home," Olivia suggested reluctantly, her gaze never leaving Chloe's. Chloe nodded, the disappointment evident in her expression. "Yes, I suppose we should," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They made their way to the elevator in silence, the tension between them thick enough to cut with a knife. As they descended to the ground floor, Olivia could feel the weight of the night's revelations pressing down on her. A reminder of the crossroads she now faced. The drive back to Olivia's apartment was a journey through a cityscape that seemed to mirror the complexity of her emotions. The streets, slick with the residue of an earlier rain, glistened under the streetlights, each reflective surface a testament to the thin line between perception and reality. Upon arriving at her building, Olivia turned to Chloe, her heart pounding in her chest. "Would you like to come up for a cup of coffee?" she offered, her voice laced with a hesitance that belied the boldness of her invitation. Chloe looked at her for a long moment, her eyes searching Olivia's for any sign of doubt. "I'd like that," she finally said, her decision made with a resolve that matched Olivia's own. As the elevator ascended, a sudden sharp crack echoed through, the shaft followed by an ominous thud. The lights flickered once, then plunged them into darkness. The car shuddered to a halt. The only sound the distant echo of the building's machinery and their own mingled breaths into the oppressive blackness. Olivia's heart pounded in her chest, a primal rhythm that matched the fear and excitement coursing through her veins. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, reaching out to where she hoped Chloe was standing. Chloe's hand found Olivia's, her fingers intertwining with a grip that was both comforting and thrilling. "Yes, I'm fine." "Just a little startled," she replied, her voice steadier than Olivia felt. In the darkness, with the world outside temporarily suspended, they were cocooned in a space where only the here and now existed. The rules that normally dictated their interactions seemed irrelevant, swallowed by the enveloping shadows that made the elevator feel both claustrophobic and intimately vast. Olivia's senses were heightened, attuned to the subtle shifts in the air around her. She could smell the faint trace of Chloe's perfume, a heady mix of jasmine and sandalwood that seemed to envelop her. She could hear the soft rustle of Chloe's clothing as she shifted closer, the warmth of her body a beacon in the cool, still air. And then, as if compelled by a force greater than themselves, they moved towards each other. Olivia's hand found Chloe's face, her fingers tracing the contours of her cheek, her jaw, the soft fullness of her lips. It was a moment of surrender, a silent acknowledgement of the desire that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. Their lips met in a kiss that was both a revelation and a confirmation of everything they had been denying. It was a kiss that spoke of longing and the sweet agony of finally giving in to temptation. Olivia felt Chloe's response, the way her body melted into the embrace, the soft moan that escaped her throat as their tongues met in an exploratory dance. The world outside, with its expectations and moral compass, ceased to exist. In the darkness of the elevator, they were simply two souls bound by a connection that defied logic and reason. The kiss was a declaration of their shared hunger, a testament to the power of the human heart to override the dictates of societal norms. But as all forbidden things must come to an end, the power returned as abruptly as it had vanished, the lights flickering back to life and casting their surroundings in a harsh, unforgiving glow. The couple sprang apart, their breaths coming in ragged gasps as they grappled with the magnitude of what had just occurred. They stood there, silent and shell-shocked. As the elevator resumed its ascent, the digital display counting off the floors with a clinical detachment that seemed to mock the emotional tempest brewing within the car. When the doors finally opened, on Olivia's floor, they stepped out into the corridor, their footsteps echoing in the silence as they walked towards Olivia's apartment. The key turned in the lock with a decisive click, and they entered the space that had borne witness to their shared secret. Chloe paused just inside the doorway, her eyes sweeping over the living room where, only a night before, she had been entwined with Jeremy. Oblivious to Olivia's silent observation. Now the tables had turned, and she was the one grappling with the reality of a forbidden attraction. Olivia began, her voice filled with the weight of their transgression. I never meant for this to happen. I don't know what comes next, but Chloe cut her off with a gentle touch, her fingers resting lightly on Olivia's lips. We'll figure it out, she said softly. Right now, I think we both need some time to process this. I should go home, Olivia nodded, a sense of loss settling over her. She wanted to say more, to find the words that would bridge the gap between this moment and the next. But language seemed insufficient to capture the complexity of their situation. They stood there for a moment longer, the air between them heavy with unspoken emotions. And then, with a final lingering look, Chloe turned and walked out the door, leaving Olivia alone with the echoes of their shared passion and the daunting prospect of the days to come. As the door closed behind Chloe, Olivia found herself adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions. The euphoria of the kiss, the thrill of surrendering to her desires, was now tempered by the sobering reality of the consequences that awaited them. Guilt, excitement, fear, and longing warred within her, each vying for dominance as she contemplated the path she had set herself upon. The morning sunlight streamed through the slats of the blinds, casting long, thin shadows across Olivia's bedroom. She awoke with a start, the softness of her pillows a stark contrast to the hard truths that awaited her in the light of day. The previous night's indiscretion. The electric charge of Chloe's kiss lingered in her mind, a vivid memory that clung to her thoughts with the tenacity of a stubborn vine. As she rose from her bed, the scent of Chloe's perfume, a subtle blend of vanilla and citrus, hung in the air, a sensory ghost that haunted her every breath. Olivia moved to the window, her gaze lost in the cityscape that stretched out before her. The world below was just beginning to stir, its inhabitants blissfully unaware of the turmoil that raged within the walls of her apartment. She turned away from the window, the reality of her situation settling over her like a shroud. The kiss, that singular act of passion, had irrevocably altered the trajectory of her life. It had awakened desires she had long kept buried, and now she found herself teetering on the edge of an emotional abyss. Her morning routine provided little in the way of solace. The familiar motions, showering, dressing, preparing breakfast, were mechanical, devoid of the comfort they usually brought. Olivia donned her armor, a tailored suit that spoke of strength and control, a stark contrast to the chaos that threatened to consume her from within. The doorbell's chime pierced the silence of her apartment, an unexpected intrusion that caused her heart to skip a beat. She made her way to the front door, each step heavy with a sense of foreboding. Opening the door, she was greeted by the sight of her stepson, Jeremy, his expression a mask of calm that did little to quell the storm brewing inside her. "Good morning, Olivia," he greeted her, stepping into the apartment with an ease born of familiarity. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I wanted to discuss some family business." Olivia mustered a smile, a facade of normalcy that concealed the whirlwind of emotions that churned beneath the surface. "Of course, Jeremy. Come in. Would you like something to drink?" They settled into the living room, the very space where the boundaries of their relationships had become irrevocably blurred. Olivia poured 2 glasses of iced tea, her hands betraying none of the turmoil that racked her nerves. As they made small talk, Olivia couldn't help but feel the weight of her secret. She listened to Jeremy's concerns about his studies, his plans for the future, all the while acutely aware of the chasm that now lay between them. The guilt of her betrayal was a bitter pill, made all the more unbearable by the genuine affection she held for him. But as the conversation unfolded, Jeremy's demeanor shifted subtly. His eyes, usually so open and guileless, now held a glint of something else, something that sent a shiver of apprehension down Olivia's spine. "Olivia," he began, his voice steady despite the tension that crackled in the air between them. "I need to talk to you about something important." Olivia's heart pounded in her chest, a relentless drumbeat that echoed in her ears. "What is it, Jeremy?" He took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. "I know about the kiss." The words hung in the air, a Damoclean sword that threatened to sever the fragile bonds of their family dynamic. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face, leaving her cold and numb. She opened her mouth to speak, to deny, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. Jeremy held up a hand, forestalling her attempts at apology or justification. "I'm not angry," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "In fact, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and it's led me to a proposition, one that might seem unconventional, but I believe could benefit all of us." Olivia listened, her mind reeling as Jeremy laid out his plan. He spoke of his own insecurities, his fears about the future of his relationship with Chloe, and then with a candor that both shocked and intrigued her. He suggested a voyeuristic arrangement that would allow him to observe Olivia and Chloe during their next intimate encounter. "I want you to invite Chloe over," he explained, his eyes searching hers for a sign of understanding. "I'll be here too, but you won't see me. I'll watch from another room using hidden cameras. It will be a clandestine performance of sorts." Olivia's mind raced as she processed his words. The plan was audacious, fraught with ethical and emotional landmines. And yet there was a part of her that felt a strange sense of relief. Jeremy's proposal, as unorthodox as it was, offered a way to explore the desires that had been ignited within her, without severing the ties that bound them together as a family. "Why would you want this, Jeremy?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He shrugged, a sheepish smile playing on his lips. "Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. There's a part of me that's curious. It wants to understand the connection between you and Chloe, and there's a part of me that finds the idea exciting. But most of all, I trust you, Olivia, and I trust Chloe. I believe that if we're all open and honest with each other, we can navigate this unconventional path together." Olivia nodded slowly, her initial shock giving way to a cautious sense of possibility. "I'll need some time to think about this, Jeremy. It's a lot to take in." "Of course," he replied, rising from his seat. "Take all the time you need. I just ask that you consider it. We can make this work, Olivia." "I know we can." As Jeremy left the apartment, Olivia was left alone with the echoes of his proposition. The day stretched out before her, an expanse of time that she would use to weigh her options and confront the myriad emotions that warred within her. She moved through the apartment in a daze, each room a silent witness to the turmoil that had taken root in her heart. The kiss with Chloe, which had once seemed like an isolated incident, now appeared to be the first step on a journey that was far more complex and unpredictable than she could have ever imagined. As the hours ticked by, Olivia found herself drawn to the very spot where she had first seen Chloe and Jeremy together. The couch that had become both a symbol of her unspoken desires and the battleground upon which her loyalty to Jeremy would be tested. She sat there, lost in thought, the scent of Chloe's perfume still lingering in the air. The more she contemplated Jeremy's proposal, the more she realized that it offered a unique opportunity to explore the depths of her attraction to Chloe, without completely betraying the trust that Jeremy had placed in her. It was a chance to indulge in her desires while maintaining the delicate balance of their familial bonds. But could she really go through with it? Could she, in good conscience, become a willing participant in such a clandestine affair? The potential for pain and heartache was undeniable, and yet the promise of experiencing the kind of raw, unbridled passion she had only glimpsed so far was a siren call that she found impossible to ignore. Olivia spent the rest of the day wrestling with the implications of Jeremy's proposition. She thought of Chloe, of the softness of her skin and the warmth of her laughter. She thought of the trust that had been placed in her, not just by Jeremy, but by Chloe as well. And she thought of the future, of the path that lay ahead. Should she choose to accept this unconventional arrangement? As evening fell and the apartment was bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, Olivia arrived at a decision. She would take the leap, step into the unknown, and see where this audacious journey would lead them all. With a newfound sense of resolve, Olivia picked up her phone and typed out a message to Chloe. It was an invitation, an overture to what would undoubtedly be one of the most pivotal moments of their lives. Chloe, she wrote, her fingers trembling slightly as she composed the text. Would you be interested in joining me for dinner at my apartment tomorrow evening? I'd love to spend some quality time together, just the two of us. She hit send before she could second-guess herself, the message disappearing into the digital ether, with the promise of a response to come. And as she set her phone aside and gazed out at the city lights that blinked like distant stars, Olivia knew that she was on the cusp of a revelation. One that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, desire, and the ties that bind. The following evening, as the cityscape outside her window transformed from a canvas of pastel hues to a tapestry of twinkling lights, Olivia waited with bated breath for Chloe's arrival. She had spent the day in a state of heightened anticipation, each passing hour bringing her closer to the precipice of an unknown future. The apartment had been meticulously prepared, the ambience crafted to be both inviting and intimate. Soft music played in the background, a carefully curated playlist that spoke of longing and the sweet agony of forbidden desires. The scent of jasmine from a bouquet of fresh flowers filled the air, a subtle nod to Chloe's favorite perfume. As the doorbell chimed, Olivia's heart leaped in her chest, a fluttering sensation that was equal parts excitement and trepidation. She opened the door to find Chloe standing there, her expression a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. Olivia, I'm so glad you could make it, Olivia said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Chloe offered a tentative smile as she stepped into the apartment, her gaze sweeping over the meticulously set table, the candles casting a warm, inviting glow. This is beautiful. Olivia. Thank you for inviting me. They settled into the evening, their conversation flowing as easily as the wine that Olivia poured into their glasses. They spoke of art and literature, of dreams deferred and aspirations yet to be realized, with each shared laughter and each lingering look. The walls that had once kept them at arm's length began to crumble, revealing the raw, unfiltered truth of their connection. As the night deepened, the dialogue shifted from cautious to candid, the air between them charged with an electric intensity. Olivia listened intently as Chloe opened up about her insecurities, her fears, and the longing for a connection that transcended the conventional boundaries of her relationship with Jeremy. I never expected to feel this way about you, Olivia, Chloe confessed, her eyes shining with a vulnerability that tugged at Olivia's heartstrings. It's confusing and overwhelming, but I can't deny the pull I feel towards you. Olivia reached across the table, her hand finding Chloe's in a gesture of solidarity and shared desire. I understand, Chloe. I've been struggling with these feelings too. But we can't ignore what's happening between us. The admission hung in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had formed despite or perhaps because of their shared connection to Jeremy. And as they stood and moved towards each other, the gravitational pull between them was undeniable, a force that neither could resist. Their lips met in a kiss that was both a homecoming and an exploration of uncharted territory. It was a kiss that spoke of longing and the sweet agony of finally giving in to temptation. Olivia felt Chloe's response, the way her body melted into the embrace, the soft moan that escaped her throat as their tongues met in an exploratory dance. Unbeknownst to the two women, Jeremy watched intently from the shadows of the adjacent room. He had prepared for this moment, setting up his hidden cameras with a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration. The sight of Olivia and Chloe locked in a passionate embrace was both a betrayal and an aphrodisiac, a vision that ignited a fire within him that he could not ignore. As he watched the women before him, their bodies entwined in a dance of desire, Jeremy's hand moved to the growing bulge in his pants. He began to touch himself, movements synchronized with the rhythm of Olivia and Chloe's kiss. The voyeuristic scenario unfolding before his eyes was a potent cocktail of emotions, a blend of jealousy, arousal, and a sense of profound connection to both of the women he cared for deeply. The kiss between Olivia and Chloe escalated into an intense physical connection, their hands exploring the curves and contours of each other's bodies, with a hunger that bordered on desperation. Just as their passion reached its zenith, Jeremy stepped out from his hiding place, his presence both a shock and a catalyst. Chloe gasped, her eyes wide with surprise as she took in the sight of Jeremy standing there, his face a mask of complex emotions. For a moment, the room was filled with a tense silence, each person grappling with the gravity of the situation. But as the initial shock wore off, something unexpected happened. Chloe turned to Olivia, her expression one of confusion and curiosity before shifting her gaze back to Jeremy. And then, to Olivia's amazement, Chloe smiled, a small, tentative curve of her lips that spoke volumes about her willingness to embrace the unconventional scenario that was unfolding before them. "Jeremy," Chloe said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions that surely raged within her, "I didn't know you were here." Jeremy moved closer, his gaze never leaving Chloe's. "I wanted to watch," he admitted, his tone one of raw honesty. "I hoped that by seeing you and Olivia together, I could better understand the connection you share." Chloe considered his words, her eyes flickering between Jeremy and Olivia. After a moment, she nodded slowly, her decision made. "Okay," she agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's see where this takes us." And so the three of them embarked on a delicate dance of power, trust, and desire. It was a dance that required each of them to lay bare their deepest fears and most fervent desires, to navigate the treacherous waters of their unconventional dynamic without a map or compass to guide them. Olivia watched as Chloe approached Jeremy, her steps measured and deliberate. She reached out, her hand tracing the line of his jaw before moving lower, her fingers deftly unbuttoning his shirt with a confidence that belied the complexity of the situation. Jeremy, for his part, stood there, his body rigid with anticipation. He allowed Chloe to undress him, his eyes locked on hers as she exposed the evidence of his arousal. And when she dropped to her knees before him, taking him into her mouth with a reverence that left him breathless, he could do nothing but surrender to the wave of pleasure that threatened to overwhelm him. Olivia, meanwhile, found herself both a participant and an observer in this unfolding drama. She watched as Chloe pleasured Jeremy, her own body aching with a need that bordered on desperation. And when Chloe beckoned her over, inviting her to join them in their exploration of the boundaries of desire, Olivia didn't hesitate. Together, they lavished attention on Jeremy, their hands and mouths working in tandem to bring him to the brink of ecstasy. And when he could take no more, he pulled them both to their feet, his lips claiming Olivia's in a fierce, demanding kiss as Chloe watched, her own arousal evident in the flush of her cheeks and the heavy panting of her breath. The evening wore on, each moment more intense than the last. They moved as one, a trio of souls caught in the throes of a passion that defied explanation. The lines between right and wrong, between propriety and taboo, blurred until they ceased to exist altogether. As they lay there in the aftermath, their bodies entwined in a sweat-slicked tangle of limbs, Olivia, Chloe, and Jeremy knew that they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. The night had been a revelation, a testament to the power of human desire to transcend the boundaries of convention and expectation. In the quiet of the apartment, with only the sound of their own breathing to accompany them. They faced the uncertainty of the future with a sense of unity and resolve. They adventured into uncharted territory. And while the path ahead was fraught with potential pitfalls and heartache, they were committed to navigating it together with open hearts and open minds. As dawn breaks, casting a soft, ethereal light through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Olivia's apartment, the space that had borne witness to the previous night's passionate encounters is now steeped in a quietude that speaks of the storm that is past. The room, once alive with the sounds of shared desires and whispered secrets, is now filled with the gentle cadence of three hearts beating in unison, each grappling with the aftermath of their transgressions. Olivia lies on the plush rug, her body still thrumming with the remnants of pleasure, her skin sensitive to the brush of the cool morning air. Her eyes trace the contours of the room, coming to rest on the two people who have, in the span of a single night, become irrevocably entwined with her destiny. Jeremy is sprawled beside her, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm, his features softened by the gentle light of dawn. His body, once taut with the tension of his voyeuristic observance, now bears the languid relaxation of a man who has experienced release on both a physical and emotional level. Chloe, meanwhile, is curled up at Olivia's other side, her head resting on Olivia's shoulder, her dark hair cascading over the curve of her back like a silken waterfall. The rise and fall of her breath matches the rhythm of Olivia's own, a testament to the profound connection they have forged in the crucible of their shared desires. The air is thick with the scent of their union, a heady blend of sweat and perfume, of skin and sex, that clings to them like a second skin. It is a scent that tells a story, a narrative of passion and exploration that has forever changed the landscape of their lives. As consciousness slowly returns to the trio, they find themselves navigating the uncharted waters of the morning after. The reality of what they have done, of the boundaries they have crossed, now looms large in the bright light of day, casting long shadows across their hearts and minds. Olivia is the first to break the silence, her voice a soft murmur that cuts through the stillness of the room. "We've crossed a line," she says, her gaze fixed on the ceiling above, one from which there is no easy return. Jeremy turns to face her, his eyes reflecting a mixture of guilt and liberation. "I know," he admits, his hand reaching out to trace the outline of her jaw. "But I can't bring myself to regret it. Last night it was unlike anything I've ever experienced." Chloe stirs at Olivia's side, her eyelids fluttering open to reveal the confusion and wonder that dance within her gaze. "I never expected to find myself here," she confesses, her fingers intertwining with Olivia's, a silent plea for understanding. "But now that I'm not sure I want to go back to the way things were." Their words hang in the air, each sentence a thread that weaves the fabric of their newfound understanding. They speak of fears and hopes, of the uncertainty that lies ahead, and of the strange sense of unity that binds them together in the aftermath of their shared transgression. As the conversation unfolds, teasing banter punctuates the more serious aspects of their dialogue, a reminder that despite the gravity of their situation, they are still bound by the ties of affection and camaraderie that have always defined their relationship. Jeremy, with a playful glint in his eye, nudges Chloe with his foot. "So, Chloe," he says, a teasing lilt to his voice, "I suppose this means you're officially part of the family now, in more ways than one." Chloe responds with a laugh, her cheeks flushing with a mixture of embarrassment and delight. "Well, I have always wanted to be part of a unique family dynamic," she quips, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Never imagined it would be quite this unique, though." Olivia joins in their laughter, the sound a balm to the lingering anxiety that gnaws at the edges of her consciousness. "We're certainly breaking new ground here," she muses, her gaze shifting between Jeremy and Chloe. "But if we're going to make this work, we need to be honest with each other about everything." The mood in the room shifts subtly, the playful teasing giving way to a more earnest conversation about the ground rules and expectations that will govern their unconventional relationship. Moving forward, they discuss boundaries and communication, acknowledging the need for mutual respect and consent if they are to navigate the complexities of their new dynamic without causing undue harm to one another. As they talk, their bodies betray the undercurrent of desire that still simmers beneath the surface. Olivia cannot help but notice the way Jeremy's eyes linger on the curve of Chloe's hip, the way Chloe's fingers absent-mindedly trace the path of the sheet that drapes provocatively over her bare skin. It is a reminder that, despite the emotional weight of their situation, the physical connection they share remains a powerful force in its own right. The morning wears on, the city outside slowly stirring to life as the trio inside the apartment continues to chart the course of their shared future. They are acutely aware of the risks involved in their endeavor, the potential for heartache and regret that looms on the horizon, but they are also buoyed by the sense of liberation and unity that has emerged from the ashes of their old lives. Olivia, Jeremy, and Chloe know that the road ahead will not be easy. There will be obstacles to overcome, doubts to conquer, societal norms to challenge. But as they rise from the rug, their bodies moving in harmony as they prepare to face the day, they do so with a sense of purpose and resolve that speaks of their commitment to each other and to the unconventional path they have chosen to follow. They are bonded by the secrets they share, the boundaries they have crossed, and the love that, against all odds, has blossomed in the shadow of their forbidden desires. Together, they will forge a new understanding, one that honors the complexities of their emotions and the unique bond that unites them. And as they stand there, naked and unashamed, the dawn's light bathing them in its warm golden embrace, Olivia, Jeremy, and Chloe know that whatever the future may hold, they will face it as one. A trio of souls connected by an experience that transcends the confines of traditional relationships and societal expectations. In the month that followed their pivotal decision to embrace their unconventional desires, Olivia, Jeremy, and Chloe wove a new tapestry of familial connection, one rich in complexity and steeped in mutual affection. Each day was a delicate balance of tender moments and fiery passion, a blend of domesticity and erotic exploration that solidified their bond as a true family unit. Their evenings were often spent preparing meals together, their laughter mingling with the sounds of chopping and sizzling pans. Afterward, they would retire to the living room, where conversations about art, science, and philosophy would stretch into the night, their minds engaged as thoroughly as their hearts. These moments of intellectual and emotional intimacy would inevitably lead to physical expressions of their affection. They became adept at reading each other's cues, knowing when a gentle caress or a lingering kiss would ignite the slow burn of desire that simmered just below the surface. Their lovemaking was a dance of equals, a giving and receiving of pleasure that was both a celebration of their individuality and an affirmation of their unity. As they navigated the intricacies of their triad, they established a routine that allowed for both shared experiences and personal space. They respected each other's need for autonomy, understanding that the strength of their bond was not dependent on constant togetherness. Instead, they found joy in the small acts of kindness and consideration that are the hallmarks of any functional family. A cup of coffee left warming on the counter, a favorite book set aside for someone else to enjoy, or a simple "I love you" murmured before parting ways for the day. Through their commitment to open communication and consent, they built a foundation of trust that could withstand the inevitable challenges they would face. They were aware that the world outside their apartment might not understand or accept their relationship, but within the sanctuary of their home, they were a family in the truest sense of the word, loving, supportive, and united in their dedication to one another. And so, as the days turned into weeks, Olivia, Jeremy, and Chloe found themselves living a life that was both ordinary and extraordinary. They had crossed boundaries and defied expectations, all while building a real family. one that was as rooted in the everyday realities of life as it was in the profound connection they shared, not in the warmth of their shared laughter. The comfort of their silent understanding and the heat of their shared passion. They had discovered the essence of what it means to be a family. Love, in all its forms, is the greatest gift of all. One crisp autumn evening, a few months into their experiment, the trio found themselves gathered in their living room, a fire crackling merrily in the fireplace. The scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air, mingling with the subtle aroma of Chloe's latest oil painting, which leaned against the far wall depicting an abstract landscape of swirling colors. Olivia sat on the rug, her back resting against the couch, a worn copy of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass open in her lap. Jeremy strummed softly on his guitar, his eyes closed in concentration as he worked on a new melody. Chloe perched on the armrest, sketched in her notebook, occasionally glancing up at her two partners with a smile. "You know," Olivia said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I was thinking about Thanksgiving. My mother always hosts, but I don't know if we're ready to face that kind of scrutiny." Jeremy stopped strumming and looked at her, concern etched on his face. "Are you saying we shouldn't go?" "Not necessarily," Olivia replied, "but maybe we should prepare them just a little. Ease them into the idea of us." Chloe nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "It's not like we can hide forever. Eventually, they're going to find out. And it's better if they hear it from us on our terms." "Exactly," Olivia said, relieved that they were both on the same page. "But how do we even begin to explain this?" The question hung in the air, a daunting challenge. They knew their families were traditional, and the idea of a triad relationship would likely be met with confusion, if not outright disapproval. Jeremy set down his guitar and stood up, pacing the room. "We could start with small hints," he suggested, mentioning that we're all spending a lot of time together, that we've become really close. "And maybe invite them over for dinner sometime before Thanksgiving," Chloe added. "Let them see how well we get along, how happy we are together." Olivia smiled. "I like that." A gradual reveal, baby steps. They spent the next few weeks subtly introducing their relationship to their families. Olivia mentioned Chloe and Jeremy in her conversations with her mother, highlighting their shared interests and the support they provided her. Jeremy spoke to his father about the creative energy that flowed through their apartment, crediting Chloe and Olivia for inspiring him. Chloe, in turn, shared stories about their movie nights and cooking adventures with her sister. Slowly, but surely, their families began to get a glimpse of the unique bond they shared. The responses were varied, ranging from cautious curiosity to mild skepticism. But no one voiced outright disapproval, which gave them hope. The dinner party held 2 weeks before Thanksgiving was a resounding success. Livia's mother, Margaret, a woman of impeccable taste and discerning judgment, was initially reserved, but as the evening progressed, she warmed up to Chloe and Jeremy, charmed by their intelligence and genuine warmth. Jeremy's father, David, a practical man with a no-nonsense attitude, was initially skeptical, but he was impressed by their passion for their respective pursuits and the evident respect they had for one another. Chloe's sister, Emily, a free spirit with an open mind, was instantly captivated by their unconventional lifestyle and embraced them with enthusiasm by the end of the evening. Everyone seemed to understand, if not fully accept, their relationship. Margaret even pulled Olivia aside before leaving, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and affection. "Olivia, darling," she said, "I don't pretend to understand what you're doing, but I can see that you're happy. And that's all that matters to me." David echoed those sentiments as he shook Jeremy's hand. "Son, you've always been a bit of a rebel, but I've never seen you this content. As long as you're all treating each other with respect, I'm on board." With their families tentatively on board, they decided to attend Thanksgiving dinner. The day itself was a roller coaster of emotions, ranging from nervous anticipation to sheer joy. There were awkward moments, of course, and a few raised eyebrows. But overall, the atmosphere was surprisingly positive. Margaret, ever the gracious hostess, made a point of including Chloe and Jeremy in every activity, ensuring they felt welcome and valued. David surprisingly found himself engaging in a lively debate with Chloe about the merits of modern art. Emily, meanwhile, regaled everyone with stories about her latest backpacking adventure, finding a kindred spirit in Jeremy, who had always dreamed of exploring the world. As the evening drew to a close, and the family gathered around the fireplace, their bellies full of turkey and pie, Olivia felt a sense of profound gratitude. They had faced their fears, challenged societal norms, and emerged stronger than ever. Later that night, back in the sanctuary of their apartment, Olivia, Jeremy, and Chloe snuggled together on the couch, their bodies intertwined, their hearts full of love. "We did it," Olivia whispered, her voice filled with awe. "We actually did it." Jeremy kissed her forehead. "Yeah, we did. And it wasn't as scary as we thought it would be." Chloe nuzzled against her neck. "We have each other, and that's all that matters." As the fire crackled and the city lights twinkled outside their window, they knew that their journey was just beginning. There would be more challenges to face, more obstacles to overcome. But they had each other, and that was all they needed. For they had built a family not of blood, but of choice, of love, of fierce and unwavering devotion. A testament to the boundless capacity of the human heart. Years passed. Olivia, Jeremy, and Chloe built a life filled with love, laughter, and creativity. Olivia continued to thrive in her career, becoming a respected leader in her industry. Jeremy pursued his music, writing songs that spoke of love, loss, and the beauty of the human experience. Chloe devoted herself to her art, creating paintings that captured the essence of their unique family dynamic. They traveled the world together, exploring ancient ruins, hiking through lush rainforests, and swimming in crystal-clear oceans. They volunteered their time at local charities, giving back to their community and spreading kindness wherever they went. They built a network of friends who embraced their unconventional lifestyle, celebrating their successes and supporting them through their struggles. One spring morning, the sun streamed through the windows of their now well-loved and slightly worn apartment. Olivia, Jeremy, and Chloe found themselves sitting around their kitchen table, sipping coffee and reading the newspaper. Jeremy let out a gasp, his eyes wide with surprise. "Guys," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "look at this." He handed the newspaper to Olivia, who scanned the article with a furrowed brow. It was a story about the legalization of same-sex marriage across the country, a landmark decision that would forever change the landscape of LGBTQ rights. Olivia looked up at Jeremy, tears welling in her eyes. "This is incredible." Chloe reached across the table and took their hands, squeezing them tightly. "A victory for all of us," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "A sign that the world is finally catching up to us." They embraced a silent celebration of the progress they had witnessed, a symbol of hope for a future where love, in all its forms, would be celebrated and accepted without reservation. And as they stood there, bathed in the warm glow of the morning sun, they knew that their journey, though unconventional, had been worth it. For they had found a love that was as boundless as the sky, a love that transcended the confines of societal norms, a love that had set them free. Their family, their beautiful, unusual, and deeply loving family, was a testament to the idea that love makes a family. And that family, ultimately, is the greatest adventure of all.